What's going on, guys? Welcome to the 49th Xamarin Android tutorial. So in the last video, we left off with just a drawer layout coming in like this, but we didn't have really anything at the top, especially the icon that indicates whether it's open or closed. So the hamburger icon to the arrow was not yet implemented, and that's because we need to now implement the action bar drawer toggle, okay? And also the whole action bar was a green, and that's because in the styles we didn't have over here in the styles. This was actually a 5. Okay, so that makes it green, but I've changed it back to an F, which makes it blue. But if you do like that green instead, feel free to keep it. But just in case you're wondering, just that's why it was green or blue or green and not blue. And then this is how to change it back to blue. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and say this, guys, and let's go ahead and start focusing on getting that indicator working. And mainly what we're missing, the meat of it, is actually the action bar drawer toggle, okay, which is really the whole reason why this whole update is necessary. So with this, what we're going to need is a new class. So let's go ahead and add that now. Let's go ahead and add new file, and we'll do general, and we're going to call it, I'll call it my action bar drawer toggle. And right away, just so that we don't have any confusion, let's also create another alias, and we're going to call it support action bar drawer toggle equals Android support 7 app action bar drawer toggle. So that's going to inherit directly from that. And then inside of here, we're going to implement the base constructor, okay? So action bar activity is the first parameter that we should take in. We'll call it host. Let's go ahead and resolve that and bring it in. And the next thing we're going to take in is drawer layout. And the reason why I'm taking these things in and how I know is if you do colon base, you can see the base class, okay? And there's two main ones that we need to focus on. So we need to focus on these two, the 4 and 5 parameters. Now notice how this one takes a toolbar and the other one does not. And if you read up on the documentation on the action bar drawer toggle, if you're setting the toolbar to the action bar, then you need to use this constructor, the one that doesn't take a toolbar. If you're not, then you need to use this one. However, we are setting our toolbar to the action bar, so we need to use this 4 parameter constructor. Now, if you use this one and you still set it as the toolbar to the action bar, you're going to get some weird things happening, like on create options menu is not going to be called, and just it's not going to be acting like a full action bar. So when you leave this out, when you omit it, Android basically assumes that, okay, you're taking the toolbar and you're making it the action bar. So basically, we're make sure you use the 4 parameter constructor for the action bar drawer toggle. So we'll do drawer layout, and then the next one's going to be, we'll call it opened resource, and this is just a string file that's going to display when the drawer layout is closed or open. And then we're just going to go ahead and pass these directly into the base class. All right. And then we're going to need some global parameters throughout the class so that the other methods inside this class can use them, okay? And we'll call that, we'll need the host activity, and we'll need the opened resource, and we're going to need the closed resource. Finally, go ahead inside of the constructor, initialize them with their values. There we go. And then we're going to need to override some methods, okay, guys? And we're going to need to override the on drawer open, and we're going to need to override the on drawer closed, and then we're going to need to override the on drawer slide. And you guessed it, these ones are all called when the appropriate action happens. Okay, so when the drawer is open, this is called by the system. Drawer closed, this is called by the system. and drawer slide while it's sliding, this is called by the system. Alrighty. So now that we have this, we have the main meat of the action bar drawer toggle. So let's go back into the main activity. And we're going to need to instantiate an instance of our my action bar drawer toggle class. We'll call this drawer toggle. And then also while we're at it, let's go ahead and instantiate the instance of the drawer layout. And if you guys forgot, just in case, remember that the drawer layout is this whole thing right here. That whole thing right there. So down here in the find view by ID, what we can do is do drawer layout equals find view by ID, and we're going to cast it to a drawer layout. And we remember that we named it drawer underscore layout. And now if you come over here into our variables, you'll also want to have a list view, and we'll call it left drawer, because remember that our list view, or our left drawer, is nothing but a list view, and that's really all it is. Nothing special. And here we're going to want to cast it to a list view, and remember that we called it left underscore drawer. All right. So now that we did that, now that we have our support action bar, let's go ahead and instantiate our drawer toggle. So we'll go new drawer toggle, new my action bar drawer toggle, and then here is where we're going to pass in some values. So we'll do this, and we'll add a little comment here. That's the host activity, and then we're going to have the actual drawer layout that this action bar or drawer toggle is associated with. And then we're going to want the actual resource string of the drawer close. Okay, and all this is basically what should appear when the drawer is open or closed, and we don't actually have to even show these if we don't want to, and because we're going to have to implement them ourselves. So if we don't implement them, they're not going to show, which maybe that's what you want. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's go ahead and make these two resources in our strings file. I'll just go ahead and be lazy and copy and paste those two, give each one a name, and then give each one a value. So I'll just say drawer open, and then drawer close. Go ahead and save that. Should add a little comma there. And then now what we need to do is, the way you can call upon the action bar is by using the property support action bar. And we can do that now that we've set it over here in this line of code. And what we want to do is we want to set the home button enabled to true. And then we want to set the display show title enabled to true. And then we want to sync it, the drawer toggle. We want what that means is sync the drawer toggle with the drawer layout. So if it's closed, sync it. If it's open, so it gets the drawer toggle and the state of the drawer layout in sync with each other. And then up here, what we're actually going to want to do, which is really important, we want to do drawer layout. So our drawer layout, we want to set a drawer listener. And our drawer listener is going to be the drawer toggle. And this is important, guys, because of the fact that basically what this is saying, it says, hey drawer toggle, listen to me when I open and close, and you go ahead and handle that. So the drawer toggle basically says, okay, well then when you close and open or slide or do anything, I'm going to call my methods. Drawer open, drawer close, drawer slide. Because so if you don't set this right here, then these methods won't get called because the drawer toggle hasn't been given permission to listen to the state of the drawer layout. So when you do that, then pass in the drawer toggle and its methods will get called. Now, the next thing we need to do, and one of the last things, mainly for the left drawer, is override on options item selected. And the reason why we need to override this is because, remember, on options item selected is called whenever a icon is clicked inside of the action bar. And the indicator, that hamburger or the arrow, are considered an icon. So this will also get called when you click on the little icon on the top left, okay? So when you click on this, this will get called. But remember, if you use that 5 parameter constructor, it actually wouldn't have got called. So some weird stuff happens. That's why that's one of the good reasons why you should make sure you use this 4 parameter constructor instead of the 5. So when this is called, what we need to do is we need to manually call the drawer toggles on options item selected method, which is right here. And then you pass in the item right here. So it by default returns false, but you should, if you're going to do any kind of customizing, if you're actually going to override this method and do anything special, then you will make sure that you want to check to see if it returns true. Then that's basically saying, okay, it's been handled, no longer to go any further. But because we're not going to actually implement anything special here, I'm simply just going to call it. And that right there is going to allow the indicator to be clicked on, because if you didn't have that line of code, you will click on this, it'll be here, but it wouldn't open, it wouldn't do anything because it doesn't know to handle anything. So the fact that we added this, now when you click on it, it will open and close accordingly. So let's go ahead and build this, guys, and make sure that our icon is there and it's working the way we expect it to. Let's pull up the emulator. Oops. All right, so we do have our icon, and it looks like we are in business, guys. So it's listening in on the slide event, and then it's also listening in on the click events for the user. Okay, so notice that this right here isn't changing depending on whether it's closed or open. And remember that I said that you don't actually have to you can even set the title to show to false. So if you wanted to, you can set this to false and then not implement anything, and then nothing will show up there, okay? But we're gonna set to true. And then what we wanna do is we want it to show whether it's open or closed, but based on this resource. Remember, the resource is in the style folder. So we want it to show these strings when it's closed or open. And that's when we actually do some stuff here, guys. That's when we actually come into the on drawer opened and on drawer closed event and actually manually set it here. So we'll do m host activity, because remember that's the activity that's passed in, and we'll call the support action bar, and we'll set the title, and it takes a resource integer, which is perfect because that's exactly what we have. So when the drawer is open, we want to do open resource. And then when it's closed, we want to do the same thing, except we want to pass in the closed resource. Now, when we go ahead and run it, semicolon. Now, when we go ahead and run it, what's going to happen is it's going to change depending on whether or not it is open or closed. So, but first notice that initially it's closed right now, but initially it's not showing closed drawers, it's showing the drawer layout, showing the app name, okay? So that's not really what we want. So what we're gonna have to do is add in some special programming in the main activity so that it shows the closed drawer the first time, because we know when it starts up, we want the action, we can assume that it's gonna be closed, so then we want that message to show up first. But when you actually touch it, it'll come back in sync, okay? So now that's working, but let's go ahead and fix the problem where it's not showing up initially, the close message, okay? And the way we can do that is we can come into here and we can do if bundle equals null, or rather we'll actually do if it does not equal null. So if it does not equal null, then that means it's basically a bundle is passed in when you do an orientation change. So, or when the activity needs to create itself all over again. So for many different reasons, but the main reason is when it does a configuration change. So from vertical to landscape, or from a portrait to landscape, or landscape to portrait. So that's when it comes back in here, and it'll do a check which bundle is as null first, but when it comes back, it won't be null. So if it does not equal null, that means it's coming back in. Okay, so otherwise it is null, which means this is the first time. So this is the first time the activity is ran. Okay, so we can assume that. And because of that, what we can do is we can do support action bar set title, and we can set it to the resource string of closed drawer. And because of that, what's going to happen is it's going to come into here, and it's actually going to come into here the first time. We can set a breakpoint here to verify that. So it does, and we can bring it back up and then run it. And then now the drawer has been set to the drawer closed. Okay, so we're assuming that when it's starting up, the drawer will be closed. So that's a safe assumption to make. And then now we have this when it starts over. But do notice now when we have it open and we do an orientation change that this comes back. So that's not good. And the reason why is because the activity was destroyed and recreated, and then we haven't done any checking on it. We didn't save an instance of it, and we don't know it doesn't know the state of the drawer when it does this, and then this comes over here and it destroys itself. So what we can do is come into here, and what we do does not equal null. That means it's coming back in from a saved instance. And what we can do is we can do if bundle dot get string drawer state, and we're having actually put this in here, but what we're going to do is drawer state equals opened. So if the drawer was open before it actually changed orientation, then we need to grab the support toolbar or support action bar, set the title to open drawer resource. Okay, so that means if it's opened when it was open before it changed landscape, or it changed from portrait to landscape, or vice versa, then we need to actually keep it open to keep the resource open for the string. Okay, so down here we can assume the opposite. Then we can assume that if it's not that, then it was actually closed, and therefore we can set the appropriate string on the toolbar as well, so which is going to be, of course, closed drawer. So where does this value come from? Where does the bundle come from? And then if you're not familiar with this, it's actually just a bundle that actually is put a string in by us with a string value pair. And the way that's done is you need to override a method, and this method will be called by the system, and it's called onSaveInstance. And now this method gets called when a orientation change happens. So the activity is being destroyed. So it's saying, not that method. It's saying basically, okay, save whatever you want to save here. That way next time you can check when it's on create to see if you want to have any values, and then handle them accordingly. So I'm saying, okay, well, what I want to do is I want to save an instance, and I'm going to want to save whether or not the drawer was opened or closed. So what I'm going to do, and the way I can tell that is if I'll do m drawer layout. So I'm going to call upon the drawer layout, and I'm going to say is drawer open? Is the drawer open? And then I'm going to pass it in a gravity, which means the gravity is the left drawer. So I'm going to specify left. So is the left drawer open, essentially? If it is, then I'm going to take my bundle, which is passed in right here, out state, and I'm going to put a string in it with a value. So I'm going to put string, drawer state, and then I am going to put opened. That's it, pretty much, opened. Otherwise, I can assume that it's closed right before it was about to be destroyed. Also the same key. Otherwise, closed. And then I simply let the base method do its thing with the out state. So this comes in here and says, okay, say if it was open, then it's going to be, okay, it's about to be destroyed. I check to see if it's open. If it is open, I save it and say, okay, remember that it is opened. So then it comes into here and it says, okay, if bundle get string. So get the string value from the key. And if it's open, that means, okay, it was open. So I need to set the resource to open. Otherwise, it must have been closed. And then now that's going to, it's basically going to remember whether or not it was open or closed and set the string on the title bar appropriately. So now that when we have this orientation change, we shouldn't have any problems with the string changing and not being in sync. Go ahead and close that one because that's actually the other one. And so now what's going to happen is what should happen is when we change the orientation, it should remember. So last time it changed when we had it open, so now we leave it open, and then now it remembers that it was open and it keeps that string at the appropriate value. And the same thing, it should do the same thing with drawer closed, which it does. So the last thing we want to do here is pretty much something simple. We just need to override another method called onPostCreate. And this is basically after it is created, we want to make sure that the drawer toggle is in fact in sync. And we'll do that after the base call. So remember that I called sync on the onCreate. I'm going to call sync again, which is good practice to call it here on the onPostCreate. So just override that and add that in there just for safe measure, and you should be in good shape after that. So that's going to be basically that's going to finish up our left navigation drawer. So the next video is going to concentrate on just the right drawer, okay? And the right drawer is actually really easy to implement. However, you run into some problems with them both being open and overlapping each other, and we don't ever want that. We want the right drawer to open, and then if the left drawer is open, we want it to close, and then vice versa. We want the left drawer, when it's opening, we want the right drawer to close, okay? So we need to do some custom programming with that, which we had to have a similar situation with, but it's a little different from the previous drawer layout video that I did. But it's pretty simple, but we pretty much, when we add it, we just need to do some checks and balances and make sure that everything is in sync with each other. Alrighty? But this actually finishes up the left navigation drawer. And if you're not looking for a right navigation drawer, this should be all that you need to really get yourself in the right position and really get yourself going with the left navigation drawer, just adding a view, and then you can of course add a list view and or add some items here, which I will do in the next video. But if you're just doing the left navigation drawer, that's pretty much it. But if you do want to see how to do a right navigation drawer, stay tuned, and the next video is going to show how to implement that. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. What's up, programmers? Congratulations on implementing your left drawer layout. And if you're looking on implementing the right drawer layout, go ahead and look at the next video and it'll show you exactly how to do that. Also, if you're looking at implementing some more stuff in material design, head back a few videos to Xamarin 45, which will go a little bit more into the toolbar. All right, see you guys.